Today I'm going to walk through the new RFP process that will allow for electronic responses. We're going to start with a requisition that is ready to be converted to a bid. Okay, so the requisition process will be exactly the way it always has been, and we now have a requisition that's in ready for purchasing status and is going to be converted to bid. So I convert to bid. Are you sure? Yes. We have our new bid number, hyperlink. I select the hyperlink, and now I'm going to follow the job aid. So I'll pull up the job aid here, and we're literally just going to walk through the job aid, and from an overview standpoint, we're going to clone the bid and have two different bid numbers. So we're going to have the primary bid, which will be for technical proposals only. And then we will have the cloned bid, which will be the secondary pricing bid, which will be used to submit pricing only. So it really is just to have that pricing in a lockbox, so to speak, so that for transparency's sake, vendors at any point can look and see, oh, pricing has not been opened yet. Okay, and only pricing can be opened only after SPO approval of the evaluation process. So what we're going to do is we're going to clone the bid, and following our job aids here. And where I clone is at the summary tab at the very bottom. So I clone the bid. It's going to ask me for the fiscal year. And now you see we have a cloned bid. Okay, so going back to our job aid, we have a cloned bid number that we can use to input into the vendor instructions. So clone bid and complete vendor instruction attachments. That's the vendor instruction to submit technical proposals and vendor instruction to submit pricing. And so really the importance here is that the vendor instructions contain the bid numbers for the primary bid as well as the secondary bid. So I'm going to pull up vendor instructions to submit technical proposals, right? So wherever these X's are in each one of these, we're going to go in and put in those bid numbers. Okay, so vendor instruction to submit technical offers for 11352. Okay, this bid is for technical responses and other required documentation. Do not submit pricing on this bid number. Pricing to be submitted under bid number 11353. Okay, and that's our cloned bid number is going to be for the pricing. Once again, there's going to be a few spots where we'll put this, but we're giving all of those instructions to the vendors to say technical is going to be here and pricing will be on this other bid. Pricing will be submitted on bid number 11353. And then one more note that says pricing must be submitted on bid 11353 before the bid opening date. So both of these bids, the primary and secondary bid, will have the same exact bid opening date, and that's very important. Okay, and then at the bottom there's just some more vendor instructions to let them know the reason why we're doing it this way. Okay, so now I will go ahead and save this. And just to make a note here, I'll go ahead and put the bid number on this vendor instruction. Okay, so that one's done. Now let's go ahead and do the vendor instruction to submit pricing, which is going to be on the cloned bid, but I think that from a workflow standpoint, it works easier just to get both of these done at the same time because they are just referencing each other. So this is going to be vendor instruction to submit pricing for bid 11353. And this note says, or this instruction says, technical responses and other required documentation must be submitted on the other bid, which is 11352. Okay, we'll go ahead and save this. So that way when we add our attachments, we can go back in and grab those. Okay, so now let's go ahead and process this primary bid. Okay, so just walking down the job aid, we're going to have some instructions that we're going to have here, and we're going to do a lot of copying and pasting really. So we will process this starting at the General tab. In the description, right, description include technical proposal only. So that way it's very clear. Technical proposal only. Type code will be RFP. We're going to default. It allows for electronic response. We want to just ensure that that is marked that way. The bid opening date, allow for approvals and at least the 14-day public posting period, which is a procurement code requirement. Let's go ahead and make it April 30th at 2 p.m. Okay, available date will just be now. Into our bulletin description, we're going to copy and paste from our job aid. So as always, just go out and make sure that you're using the most recent job aid. The job aid at this point, I'm going to go ahead and copy, paste, and go ahead and add that the pricing will be attached in bid number, right? So there's just one more opportunity to add instructions to the vendor. 11353, which is that cloned bid right here. That'll be that bid number that you'll put in the bulletin description. SPO name, and the rest of this would be completed as usual. So if it's a small business set-aside procurement, no. Is there a BEP goal? With our example today, we'll say yes, there's a 20% BEP goal and a 3% veterans goal. Okay? Now we'll save and continue, and we're going to edit our items tab next. Items tab, we will go into the item so we can add more instructions for the vendor in that description. So we're going to copy and paste again this vendor instruction that is saying do not submit pricing for this bid. Okay. Save and exit. And address, we don't need to do the address. Accounting has already been done, and now we will add our attachments. So a couple different attachments we'll have. Obviously, what you would normally have for the bid or at the bid stage, we'd have the RFP document. So let's go in and grab something here. We'll call it this is the RFP document. We will add our next file will be if I go back, the vendor instructions that we made for the technical piece, as well as the attachment for the notice of electronic submission only. And I'll show you where to get that as well. Choose file. We'll go back in our vendor instruction to submit technical proposals. Add file. We're going to go and add the notice of electronic submission only. Save and exit. And just to show you exactly where that document is, the CPO for General Services website, it's in the Procurement Resources library. So it's in the same spot where all of the templates and contract documents live, which is the solicitation and contract templates and forms. Scroll down here, we have a nice big new icon that's right next to it, and this is the attachment, the notice of electronic submission only, which just goes in and talks about the reason for only allowing electronic responses and submissions. Okay, so let's go back to our attachments tab. Anything else that would need to be attached here, just following down the job aid. So you'd have your final evaluation tool, the evaluation team, blank forms A and B, all those approved goal setting forms, VBP documentation, and any other agency specific form that you may have, any sort of internal forms. Okay, so those would be all making sure that those documents that we just attached are showing to vendor. And then we'll move on. As a part of our bidders tab, you'll add the bidders the same exact way you always have. We look up and add vendors. We are searching for NIGP class. I think for this one I did 918. I don't remember exactly which one it was. So we'll go with aviation consulting for this one. Find it. We'll have our list of vendors. We select, per usual, save and exit. We'll have our vendor list here. Then we select our bidder participation, which is unrestricted. We ensure that hide bid holder list on the vendor side is checked. In production, this defaults to being checked, but in the training environment isn't for some reason. So we'll make sure that's checked. Save and continue. And then we move to our next tab. Okay, so this next tab is the questions tab, and this is going to be something that is new for us. We are actually going to put in an action item for the vendor to be able to go in and click a box that acknowledges that this bid is only for technical responses, and the other bid, which will be the cloned bid, will be for pricing only. So we're going to select the required box. We'll go back to our job aid here and just once again copy and paste the language that we have in there. Go ahead and put in what that bid is going to be. So do you acknowledge that this bid is to submit the technical proposal only, and pricing will be submitted on bid number 11353, which is, once again, that cloned bid. Then we get to response type. In the drop down, we will select yes or no, so that when we save and continue here, the vendor, it's going to be required for them to acknowledge this question. Save and continue, and now we can move on. We don't have any amendments. We're not going to utilize Q&A. The reminders tab is set up the same way that it always is. If you wanted to remind somebody else to come and take a look at this document, you could. But at this point, we're done. And normally, at this point, we would go ahead and submit for approval, right? But we're going to wait. And the reason why we're going to is we want to process that secondary bid. So we put a note in the job aid here. Note, primary and secondary bids should be submitted for approval at the same time. And the reason that is just think about it from the vendor standpoint. We want them to receive notifications for both of these bids simultaneously, or one right after another. So when you submit both of these for approval, they'll go through the approval paths. Once it gets to the SPO who sends the bid, they will send both bids at the same time. Okay, so we're done with the primary bid. Let's go ahead and process the cloned bid. Okay, so now we're in our cloned bid, and we're going to work through the tabs in a very similar fashion. So go back to our general tab. And why don't we go and pull up the other job aid we have. Where's that pricing one? Why don't I go grab it real quick? Bid by, just an opportunity to show exactly where those job aids are again. Bid by resources for state agencies. We're in our bid by training resources page. We go to request for proposal, and we have our job aid for pricing. Okay, so we have our clone bid here. This one won't take quite as long. In our description, we're going to include pricing only. So in our general tab, in our description, this one will have pricing only as a part of the title. Type code, once again, will still be RFP. Allow electronic response, just ensure that is checked, of course. Our bid opening date must match, let me go back here and show on the job aid, must match the primary RFP bid opening date. Okay, that makes sense, right? They need to be submitted on the same date. Bid opening date, we made it April 30th at 2 p.m. Okay, that's going to be a very important piece there. Available date is now. And then we get to the bulletin description, and once again, we're going to copy and paste. That this bid is only being used to submit pricing for bid number 11352. So that's, once again, another reference to the other primary bid. SPO name, and then the same questions. This should match the primary bid. This is not a small business set aside. There is BEP and veteran goals, 20% and 3%. Also, we are adding a new feature here. This link to original contract, we want to go in and link this bid to the primary bid. So this is important because when you cloned the bid, when you cloned the primary bid, you know that you had that hyperlink. That's how we got to this clone bid. So that's connected that way, but there is no link back to the primary bid. So we want to add that here. We select the magnifying glass. Our document type is bids, and then the bid number, or if you bid description, however you want to search for your parameters. Then you select that bid using the radio button and select. So now you see that there's a hyperlink there. We also have a field right below that. It's just a text field that has the original bid number. Go ahead and just type that in there as well, then save and continue. Okay, so next up on our list, right, so here's on the job aid, the instructions for how to do that. Next, we get to our items tab. We're going to disable pricing on the quote, and then, once again, copy and paste, so we have some very clear instructions to our vendors. So items tab, I open up that item, right? So I select that first line item here, and then it's going to allow me to put in the description, copy and paste. And we're also going to disable pricing on the quote. And really all this does is we want to make sure that the vendor knows that it's going to be grayed out, so they aren't going to be able to click in and put in their unit cost like they would if pricing was enabled. But since we want to just have them attach the pricing document, that's why we added this language here. Do not enter pricing here, attach pricing document in the attachments tab, and ensure any documents are marked confidential. So a new update, a recent update for BidBuy is that any documents that are attached to a quote are defaulting to being marked confidential. Okay, but anyway, we always want to let them know, or we want to let vendors know to ensure that the documents are marked confidential. But that will be the default. Okay, save and exit. We're good with our items. The address and accounting has already been done, and we get to attachments, and we're